Good evening, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember to leave a comment below to let us know where you're watching from. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Tonight, I have 3 deeply disturbing college experiences that will make you question everything you thought was safe about campus life. Now let's begin. College was supposed to be freedom, new friends, late nights, the best years of your life. But for these 3 people, it became something else entirely. A dorm room that watched them sleep, a study partner who knew things they shouldn't, and a campus tradition that should have stayed buried. What you're about to hear, these aren't legends. These aren't urban myths passed around at midnight. These are real experiences from real people. And after tonight, you might never feel safe on campus again. I remember when I was 18, moving into Hartwell Hall for my freshman year. It was August 2019, hot as hell, and my parents had just driven away after helping me unpack. I stood there in room 412, finally alone, finally independent, finally free. The room was small. 2 twin beds, 2 desks, 2 dressers. Standard college dorm setup. My roommate wasn't arriving until the next day, so I had the place to myself that first night. I remember feeling excited, This was it. This was the beginning of everything. I spent that evening setting up my side of the room, putting up posters, organizing my textbooks. Around 11 p.m., I decided to take a shower down the hall. When I came back, I noticed something weird. My laptop was open. I could have sworn I'd closed it before leaving. I walked over and saw that the webcam light was on. That little green dot next to the camera. My heart did this weird skip thing, but I told myself I probably just bumped it or something. I closed the laptop and went to bed. The next morning, my roommate Emma arrived. She seemed cool, art major, kind of quiet, had this whole indie aesthetic going on. We hit it off immediately. Spent the whole day exploring campus together, getting food, meeting people on our floor. That night, we were both in the room getting ready for bed when Emma suddenly stopped and stared at the ceiling. "Do you see that?" she asked. I looked up. "See what?" "That little hole, right there in the ceiling tile." I squinted. She was right. There was a tiny hole in one of the ceiling tiles, maybe the size of a pencil eraser, right above the space between our 2 beds. "Huh," I said. "Probably just damage from the last tenants or something." Emma shrugged and we both went to sleep. But that night, I had the strangest feeling. Like I was being watched. You know that sensation. When the hair on your neck stands up and your body just knows something's wrong even if your brain can't explain it. Over the next week, little things started happening. Both Emma and I would find our laptops open when we were sure we closed them. Items would be moved slightly. A hairbrush facing a different direction. A textbook on the wrong shelf. Nothing major. Just off. Then Emma found the first photo. She came back from class one afternoon, opened her laptop, and went pale. She turned the screen toward me without saying a word. It was a photo of her, sleeping, taken from above, like from the ceiling. You could see her in her bed, covers pulled up, completely unconscious. The angle was perfect, centered, deliberate. "What the fuck?" she whispered. My hands were shaking as I opened my own laptop. I went through my photo library, my downloads, everything. I found 37 photos, all of me, sleeping, changing clothes, studying at my desk, all taken from that same angle, from above. We called campus security immediately. 2 officers came up and investigated our room. One of them, Officer Martinez, climbed on a chair and pushed aside the ceiling tile with the hole. What he pulled down made my stomach drop. It was a small camera, wireless, sophisticated, the kind you'd use for home security. It was angled perfectly to capture both sides of our room. "How long has this been here?" Emma asked, her voice cracking. Officer Martinez's face was grim. "We need to check something." They searched the entire ceiling, found 2 more cameras, one in the ceiling above our closet area, another near the window. 3 total, positioned to capture every single inch of our room. The investigation that followed was a nightmare. Turns out, someone had installed those cameras before the semester started. The housing department had records showing that maintenance had been in our room for routine work in mid-July. But when they checked with the maintenance supervisor, no work orders had been filed for room 412. Someone had posed as maintenance, got access to rooms across campus, and planted cameras. We weren't the only ones. 16 rooms in Hartwell Hall had been compromised. 32 students, all female students, had been recorded without their knowledge for weeks. The police investigation went on for months. They traced the camera's IP address to a computer on campus, and when they finally identified the person, it was James Whitmore, a graduate student who worked part-time in the housing office. He had access to master keys, access to maintenance schedules, access to everything he needed. When they searched his apartment, they found hard drives, terabytes of footage, thousands of hours of recordings from over 100 different dorm rooms spanning 3 years. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. The part the police didn't release to the media. They found something else on those hard drives. Files organized by room number and date, but also notes. Detailed notes about each person's schedule, habits, vulnerabilities. He was studying us, learning our patterns, and in a password-protected folder, they found lists, categories of students marked as potential, promising, or selected. Emma and I were both listed as selected. The detective who interviewed me wouldn't tell me what that meant. She just said we were very lucky, that they'd caught him when they did. James Whitmore was arrested and charged with dozens of crimes. But here's what haunts me. The cameras in our room were recording for 3 weeks before Emma accidentally noticed that hole in the ceiling. 3 weeks. I transferred to a different university the next semester. Emma did too, different school. We don't keep in touch. I think we both just wanted to forget. But I can't forget. Because 2 months ago, I got a notification on my phone. Someone had tried to access my Instagram account from an unknown device. The login attempt was unsuccessful, but it showed the location. The IP address traced back to a prison. The same prison where James Whitmore is serving his sentence. He still has access to computers. He still has access to the internet. And he remembered me. I've changed all my passwords, made everything private, covered the webcam on my laptop with tape. But sometimes, late at night, I still feel it. That sensation of being watched. And I wonder, did they find all the cameras? Or are there still some out there, in dorm rooms across campus, watching students who have no idea, recording people who think they're safe in their own rooms? I'll never know, but I'll never feel safe again either. If you think that was disturbing, wait until you hear about the study partner who knew too much. I remember when I was 19, struggling through my sophomore year biology course. It was spring semester 2021, and I was on the verge of failing. Biology had never been my strong suit, and Professor Chen's class was notoriously difficult. I needed at least a B to keep my scholarship. That's when I met David. He approached me after class one day in March. I'd seen him around, always sat in the front row, always had his hand up. Clearly one of those students who actually understood everything. "Hey," he said, catching up to me in the hallway. "I noticed you've been struggling a bit. I'm organizing a study group if you want to join." I should have asked more questions, like how he knew I was struggling, or why he'd specifically approached me. But I was desperate, so I just said yes. The study group met in the library every Tuesday and Thursday night, but it was really just the two of us. David said the others had dropped out. We'd sit in a quiet corner on the 3rd floor, and he'd explain concepts that had completely baffled me in lecture. And here's the thing. He was an incredible tutor. He didn't just understand the material. He understood exactly what I didn't understand. He knew which specific parts confused me before I even said anything. "You're going to get stuck on mitosis here," he'd say, flipping to a page in the textbook. "Let me explain it differently." And he was always right. I would have gotten stuck exactly where he predicted. My grades improved dramatically. Within 3 weeks, I went from failing to pulling solid B's on quizzes. I was so grateful. David was saving my scholarship, my future. But then I started noticing things. One Thursday night, we were studying for a major exam. David handed me a sheet of practice problems he'd created. "These are exactly the types of questions Chen asks," he said confidently. I worked through them while he watched. When I finished, he smiled. "Perfect. You're ready." The next day, I took the exam, and I swear to God, 8 out of the 10 questions were nearly identical to David's practice problems. Not just similar, nearly word for word the same. I got a 94, my highest grade all semester. After class, I texted David, "How did you know exactly what would be on the exam?" His response came immediately. "I'm just good at predicting. Professor Chen has patterns." I wanted to believe him, but something felt wrong. The following week, I arrived early to the library for our study session. David wasn't there yet, so I sat at our usual table and pulled out my notes. That's when I noticed he'd left his notebook from our last session. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that, but curiosity got the better of me. The first few pages were normal, biology notes, diagrams, the kind of stuff you'd expect. But then I reached a section marked with my name. Under Sarah Mitchell, that's me. There were pages and pages of observations. Not about biology, about me. Arrives at library 6:47 p.m. on average. Always orders vanilla latte before studying. Chews her pen when nervous. Struggles most with cellular processes. Sits in third row, left side in lecture. Walks back to Patterson Hall dorm after our sessions. Usually alone. My hand started shaking. I flipped more pages. There were detailed schedules, my class times, my work shifts at the campus bookstore, when I went to the gym. Information he couldn't possibly know unless he'd been following me. And then I found the photographs. They were printed photos, taped into the notebook. Pictures of me walking across campus, sitting in the dining hall. One of me through my dorm room window. At the bottom of the page, in neat handwriting. Subject shows consistent patterns. Vulnerable due to academic pressure. Trust established. Ready for phase 2. Phase 2? Ready for what? I heard footsteps behind me. I slammed the notebook shut and spun around. David was standing there, holding 2 coffee cups. His expression was neutral, but his eyes, God, his eyes were cold. Empty. "You're early," he said calmly. I should go," I stammered, shoving my stuff into my bag. "I forgot I have somewhere to be." "You found my notebook." It wasn't a question. "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied, backing away from the table. "Yes, you do." He set down the coffee cups slowly, deliberately. "And now we have a problem, Sarah." He'd never used my name before. He'd always just called me, "Hey, were you?" Hearing it now, in that flat, emotionless tone, made my blood run cold. "I need to leave," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You can't leave. Not yet. We're not finished." "Finished with what?" He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "The study. You're part of a study." "What kind of study?" "Human behavior. Psychological manipulation. How easy it is to gain someone's complete trust. How predictable people become when they're desperate." He took a step toward me. "You've been perfect. So trusting. So grateful. So easy to control." I felt sick. "Are you even a student here?" "Of course I am. Psychology PhD candidate. My dissertation is on trust exploitation and vulnerability assessment in high-pressure academic environments. I've been running this experiment for 2 years. You're my 7th subject." My mind was racing. The exam questions. How did you know? I didn't predict them. I stole them. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. "I have access to Professor Chen's office. He leaves his computer unlocked. It was easy. You made me cheat." I breathed. "You cheated. I just provided the opportunity, and you took it. That's what my research proves. Under pressure, students will compromise their ethics if given the chance." I felt tears burning in my eyes. "Why me? You fit the profile. Academic probation. Scholarship dependent on grades. Isolated from family. They're what? 3 states away. Limited friend group. You were perfect. Vulnerable. Moldable. That's when I ran. I didn't think. I just grabbed my bag and ran. He called after me, but I didn't stop. I ran down the stairs, through the library, out into the night. I went straight to campus police, told them everything, showed them the texts, described the notebook, the photos. They took my statement and said they'd investigate. They brought David in for questioning. He denied everything, said I was making it up because I felt guilty about cheating, that I was trying to blame him for my own academic dishonesty. And when they searched his apartment, no notebook, no photos, nothing. His laptop had been wiped. His cloud storage was empty. He destroyed all the evidence. Without proof, there was nothing they could do. The university put him on academic watch, but he wasn't expelled. And when they investigated the exam questions, they found that I'd scored unusually high on that test, higher than I'd scored all semester. They accused me of cheating. Not him. Me. I was brought before the Academic Integrity Board. I told them what David had done, how he'd manipulated me, but I couldn't prove any of it. Without evidence, it just looked like I was making excuses. I was found guilty of academic dishonesty. I lost my scholarship. I had to withdraw from the university. David completed his PhD. I looked him up recently. Dr. David Chun. He'd even stolen Professor Chen's last name for his fake identity during the study. His real name was David Reeves. His dissertation was published. It's titled Trust Exploitation in Academic Settings, a case study in behavioral manipulation. In the acknowledgement section, he thanks the 7 participants who unknowingly contributed to this research. 7 of us. 7 students whose lives he destroyed for his research. But here's what keeps me awake at night. Last month, I got a LinkedIn connection request. The profile had no photo, but the name was Academic Research Initiative. The message read, "Hello, Sarah. Thank you for your contribution to my research. I'm beginning a new study on long-term psychological impact. Your continued participation would be valuable. I'll be in touch. DR." I reported it, blocked it, but 2 days later, I found an envelope under my apartment door. Inside was a single page from David's dissertation, my section, with all my personal information, my real name, my schedule from back then, my patterns, and written in the margin, "Phase 2 begins now." He's still watching, still studying, and I don't know how to make it stop. The final story tonight is about a tradition, one that should have stayed forgotten. I remember when I was 20 years old, rushing for Alpha Sigma fraternity at Blackwood University. It was fall semester 2018, and I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. Greek life was huge on campus, and Alpha Sigma was the oldest, most prestigious fraternity. Getting a bid was an honor. Initiation week was the final test before becoming a full brother. 7 days of challenges, traditions, tests of brotherhood. It was supposed to be intense, but meaningful. That's what they told us. They lied. There were 5 of us pledges, me, Jake, Marcus, Tommy, Chris, and Dev. We'd been pledging together all semester, going through the usual stuff, study hours, community service, memorizing fraternity history. We were tight. We'd become real friends. On Sunday night, initiation week began. The current brothers blindfolded us and drove us somewhere off campus. When they removed the blindfolds, we were standing outside an old house deep in the woods. It looked abandoned, windows boarded up, paint peeling, surrounded by dense trees that blocked out most of the moonlight. "This is Blackwood House," said Marcus Holloway, the fraternity president, "built in 1889 by our founding members. Every Alpha Sigma member has spent initiation week here. For the next 7 days, you will live in this house, complete the challenges, prove your worth. Do not leave the property under any circumstances. Do you understand?" We all nodded. "Good. You'll find supplies inside. Food, water, bedding, everything you need. Your first challenge begins tomorrow at dawn." He paused, his expression deadly serious. "One more thing. Stay out of the basement. That is not part of initiation. The basement is off limits. Are we clear?" They left us there with flashlights and our phones, though there was no cell service this deep in the woods. The house was exactly as creepy as it looked from outside. Furniture covered in sheets, thick dust everywhere. That smell old houses have, mildew and decay. We found 5 sleeping bags laid out in what used to be a living room. There was food in the kitchen, non-perishables mostly, bottled water. And there was a large envelope on the table labeled Day 1. Marcus opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with instructions. Tomorrow you will receive your first challenge. Tonight, choose one pledge to stand watch while the others sleep. The watcher must remain awake all night. He may not wake the others for any reason. Rotation begins. Make your choice. We drew straws. Tommy got the short one. The rest of us tried to sleep while Tommy sat in a chair by the front door, flashlight in his lap. I dozed off around midnight, but woke up a few hours later, needing to piss. As I walked past Tommy toward the bathroom, I noticed he looked tense. "You good?" I whispered. "Did you hear that?" He asked. "Hear what?" "Footsteps. Upstairs. Someone's walking around up there." I listened. At first, nothing. Then I heard its slow, deliberate footsteps from the second floor. Back and forth, like someone pacing. "It's probably just the house settling," I said, trying to sound confident. "Old houses make noise. Houses don't settle in a walking rhythm," Tommy said. He was right. The footsteps were too regular, too purposeful. Someone, or something, was walking back and forth above us. "Should we check it out?" I asked. Tommy shook his head. "Instructions said I can't wake the others. And I'm not going up there alone. We'll check in the morning." I went back to my sleeping bag, but didn't sleep. I just listened to those footsteps. Back and forth, all night long. At dawn, we all gathered in the kitchen. Tommy looked exhausted. When we told the others about the footsteps, Marcus wanted to investigate immediately. We climbed the stairs as a group. The second floor had 4 bedrooms and a bathroom, all empty, all undisturbed. We checked every room, every closet. Nothing. No one. Maybe it was raccoons in the attic, Dev suggested. But the ceiling showed no signs of animal activity. No droppings, no scratches, nothing. That's when Chris noticed the door at the end of the hallway. It was different from the others, heavy wooden with a rusty lock. "That must go to the attic," he said, reaching for the handle. "Don't," Marcus warned. "Remember what they said. Stay out of certain areas." They said basement, not attic. Chris opened the door. Stairs led down, not up. "That's weird," Tommy said. "Why would there be a staircase going down on the second floor?" We all looked at each other, the same realization hitting us all at once. This wasn't the attic. This was another way into the basement. We should have closed that door and walked away. We should have followed the rules. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Marcus went first. The rest of us followed. The staircase was narrow, the walls closing in as we descended. Our flashlights barely penetrated the darkness below. The stairs went down much farther than they should have, way past where the first floor would be. We must have descended 40 or 50 feet before we reached the bottom. The basement was massive, far too large to fit under the house we'd seen from outside. Stone walls, dirt floor, the ceiling supported by thick wooden beams, and along the walls, cages. Old metal cages, big enough to hold a person. In the center of the room was a circle painted on the ground in what looked like dried blood. Inside the circle were symbols I didn't recognize. And around the circle, 5 chairs, facing inward. "What the fuck is this?" Dev whispered. That's when we saw them. The names carved into the wooden support beams. Hundreds of names, maybe thousands, each one with a date next to it, going back over a century. I walked closer to read them. The dates were organized chronologically. Thomas Morrison, 1889. James Fletcher, 1889. Robert Blackwood, 1890. The names continued, year after year. 5 names per year, every year, going back to 1889. "These are the initiates," Marcus said quietly. "Every pledge class. They carve their names here." I kept reading forward through time. The names continued into the 1900s, the 1950s, the 1980s, and then I reached recent years. 2015, 2016, 2017. My blood turned to ice. Guys, I said, my voice shaking. Look at this. The others gathered around. On the beam were 5 names from 2017. Michael Torres, 2017. Brandon Kim, 2017. Tyler Anderson, 2017. Scott Murphy, 2017. Alex Martinez, 2017. I know those names, Chris said slowly. Those were the pledges from 2 years ago. They disappeared during initiation week. The university said they ran away. There was a whole investigation. They didn't run away, Tommy whispered. They died here. I looked at the next beam, hoping to find names from 2018, praying there would be names. The beam was blank, waiting. We need to leave, Marcus said. Right now. We turned to run back to the stairs, but we weren't alone anymore. Brothers from the fraternity were standing at the bottom of the stairs. All of them, 20 or 30 guys, forming a semicircle, blocking our exit. Marcus Holloway, the president, stepped forward. His expression was somber, almost apologetic. You broke the rules, he said quietly. You entered the basement. You broke the rules, he said quietly. You entered the basement. What is this? I demanded, my voice cracking with fear. What happened to those guys from 2017? The same thing that happens every few years, Holloway said. Alpha Sigma was founded on an oath, a pact. 5 founding members made a deal in this basement in 1889. They wanted power, success, influence. They got it, but power requires payment. Payment. Dev's voice was barely a whisper. Every few years, the pact demands renewal. 5 lives. 5 brothers who voluntarily joined us, who willingly entered this house, who chose to break the rules and enter the basement. You're insane, Marcus, our Marcus, not the president, said. We're leaving. You can't stop us. We don't have to stop you, Holloway said. She will. That's when I felt it, a presence in the room that hadn't been there before. The temperature dropped so suddenly I could see my breath. The flashlights flickered, and then I heard her voice. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. A woman's voice, ancient and terrible. 5 offered. 5 accepted. The pact continues. The painted circle on the floor began to glow with the sickly red light. The symbols pulsed like a heartbeat. We ran, all 5 of us scattered in different directions, trying to find another way out. But the basement was a maze, corridors branching off in all directions, none of them leading anywhere. Just more stone walls, more cages, more darkness. I don't know how long we ran. Minutes, hours. Time felt wrong down there. Eventually, I ended up back at the main room. Tommy and Chris were there too, both of them pale and terrified. Where are Marcus and Dev? Tommy asked. We heard screaming. Marcus's voice, coming from one of the corridors. Then it cut off suddenly, completely silent. We're going to die here, Chris said, sinking to his knees. No, I said, even though I didn't believe it. There has to be a way out. I looked around desperately. The brothers were still there, watching us with empty expressions. Holloway was standing by the circle, almost reverent. That's when I noticed something. On the far side of the room, barely visible in the shadows, was another door, smaller than the others. No one was guarding it. I grabbed Tommy and Chris. On 3, we run for that door. Don't stop. Don't look back. 1, 2, 3. We ran. Behind us, I heard Holloway shout, heard footsteps giving chase. But we reached the door first. I yanked it open, and we stumbled through into a tunnel. A literal tunnel, carved through earth and rock, sloping upward. We ran through that tunnel until our lungs burned. Behind us, I could hear them coming. Multiple footsteps. And that voice, that terrible voice. The pact demands 5. The tunnel finally ended at metal grate. Together, we pushed it open and climbed out into the night. We were in the woods, maybe half a mile from the house. We ran until we hit a road, flagged down a car, made it to the police. The police went to Blackwood House with us the next morning. They found a house exactly as we described. But the basement, they said there was no basement. Just a normal crawl space with some old furniture. No stone walls. No cages. No names carved into beams. No circle. No tunnel. Marcus and Dev were listed as missing persons. They're still missing 3 years later. The fraternity was investigated, but nothing was ever proven. Alpha Sigma was temporarily suspended, but they're back now, still initiating new pledges every year. I dropped out of Blackwood University, transferred across the country, changed my number, tried to forget. But last week, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a photograph of Blackwood House, and in the photo, carved into one of the exterior walls, where it shouldn't be visible, 5 names. Fresh. Recent. Jake Morrison, 2021. Tommy Chun, 2021. Chris Walker, 2021. Marcus Davis, 2021. Dev Patel, 2021. All 5 of us. Even though 3 of us escaped. Even though we're still alive. Our names are already carved. The pact already counted us. Which means we didn't escape. We just delayed the inevitable. And now, 3 years later, I'm starting to understand what that means. Because lately, I've been having dreams. Dreams about that basement. About that circle. About that voice calling my name. And 2 nights ago, I woke up to find dirt under my fingernails. Dirt that smells like that basement. Like old stone and decay and blood. I'm being pulled back. We all are. The pact demands 5. And it will collect 3 stories. 3 nightmares that actually happened to real people. A dorm room that was never safe. A steady partner who destroyed lives for research. And a fraternity tradition that demands blood. These aren't just stories. This is real life. Real horror. Real evil hiding in plain sight on college campuses, just like yours. If these stories disturbed you, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below. Have you ever experienced something paranormal or terrifying at your college? I read every single comment, and your story might be featured in a future video. Until next time, stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding in the dark. They're the ones standing right next to you.